When my husband discovered that I wouldn't inherit my dad's money upon his passing, he became really angry. He shouted at me, saying, "What? You can't inherit the house and money? I don't need you anymore. I want to break up with you right now." After that, I harbored a desire to retaliate against my husband and my sister, who hastily remarried. My name is Julie, and I work in an office. I'm 32 years old and have been married to Brian for 2 years. I met Brian through a mutual acquaintance, and then we tied the knot. My family was affluent, but with only my sister Mary and me as heirs, our relatives fretted over who would inherit. They deemed Brian a suitable match for me and thus introduced us. Though Brian didn't inherit any money officially, he moved into my parents' home with us. Unfortunately, my mom passed away a few years ago, leaving just my dad, my husband, and me in the house. Brian appeared kind and cared for my dad, but before our marriage, the relative who introduced us cautioned me about him. "I introduced Brian to you, but be cautious. He can be quite fixated on money." Despite nearing our wedding and exchanging engagement rings, I didn't notice any glaring signs of Brian's fixation, so we proceeded with the marriage. Even after tying the knot, I remained vigilant due to the warning. However, Brian didn't seem excessively focused on wealth. Occasionally, he'd inquire about our family's finances during drinks with my dad. Since my dad was forthcoming, I didn't think much of it. Another point of interest for Brian was my sister. She's 5 years my junior and possesses a vastly different personality, outgoing and fond of mingling with different men. Her contrast to me, along with her striking beauty, captured my husband's attention upon their first meeting. "Julie, your sister is quite unlike you, isn't she?" Brian's fascination with my sister, who was stunningly beautiful unlike myself, left me feeling uneasy. Our relatives introduced Brian to me because they worried I might struggle to find a spouse due to my simple appearance and demeanor. They feared our family name might fade. Initially, I didn't dwell on it much, given my beautiful sister. However, later on, I grasped their concern. My dad indulged my sister. He financed her college education after high school, followed by vocational school. However, she lacked concrete plans for either institution. She simply didn't want to work. Despite my mom's urging to find employment after college, my dad insisted on vocational school. After completing her vocational training, she secured a job at a friend of my dad's company. Yet she quit after just 6 months, citing an inability to utilize her skills fully. My sister, with less than 6 months of work experience, displayed unwarranted confidence in her job knowledge, surprising my mom and me. Nonetheless, my dad believed her and promptly found her another position. Shortly after commencing her new job, my mom fell ill and required hospitalization. My sister visited her daily, taking time off work. However, she eventually quit that job too, declaring she cared for our ailing mom. In reality, she mostly sat with our mom in her hospital room or idled on her phone in the waiting area. Meanwhile, I took on all the household chores, tending to our mom's needs while my sister contributed nothing. Despite possibly providing comfort to our mom, her health deteriorated over a month, rendering her unable to communicate. 2 weeks after her decline, she passed away, leaving my dad and sister too stunned to organize her funeral. Taking charge of organizing everything with the assistance of our relatives, I ensured our mother received a proper farewell. After her passing, my sister secured a part-time job and moved out to live independently. However, her earnings didn't suffice, prompting Dad to cover her rent and bills. It appeared she directed her income toward leisure activities. When her part-time job proved insufficient, she turned to Dad for more money. While Mom used to impose financial discipline, Dad became more lenient after her demise. Initially, I didn't object as long as Dad and my sister were content. Even after I married and relocated, Dad continued providing for her financially. Unbeknownst to me, my sister also sought money from my husband, who complied without informing me, fearing my reaction. My sister showed little interest in working, preferring to rely on Dad's and my husband's generosity. However, her carefree lifestyle was short-lived as Dad fell ill and was hospitalized. While I tended to him between work breaks, my sister didn't bother visiting the hospital. Instead, she phoned me, demanding money. "I've been receiving money from Dad every month, so you should continue giving it to me. After all, he's covering the rent and bills," she asserted angrily. This revelation shocked me, and I reprimanded her for prioritizing money over our sick father. Despite my frustration, I inquired about the amount Dad had been providing her monthly. "How much does Dad give you each month?" You should seek employment and support yourself, I admonished. Stop being demanding. I receive $1,000 monthly, excluding rent and bills, she grumbled. Her nonchalant bragging disgusted me, and I feared she'd never feel compelled to work earnestly if Dad continued indulging her. Initially, I didn't perceive it as a significant issue, assuming Dad would recuperate. However, his sudden deterioration left me stunned, struggling to keep our relatives informed. The gravity of his condition shook me deeply. Amidst this turmoil, I yearned for my husband's support, but he scarcely visited the hospital, citing work commitments. When he did come, he posed inappropriate questions like, "Your dad must have substantial savings, right? And since you and your sister are the only heirs, will the inheritance be evenly split?" His fixation on money left me speechless, and I finally comprehended our relative's warnings about his obsession. When my sister received a call, I informed her of Dad's critical state, but her concern was solely for her financial stability. "Ensure you continue my monthly allowance. I can't manage without it," she abruptly concluded. Anger surged within me at her response, compounded by the faint sound of a male voice in the background, triggering a sense of foreboding. About a month later, Dad passed away, with neither my sister nor my husband present in his final moments. Having experienced my mother's funeral previously, I understood the emotional toll of organizing such arrangements. Despite this, my sister and husband offered no assistance, with my sister not even attending the funeral. Though my husband attended briefly, he departed early, citing work commitments. The relative who introduced us noticed his absence and inquired about it. "Where's your husband?" "It's not ideal for the main mourner to be absent," the relative remarked. Forced to maintain composure, I offered a forced smile and replied, "He's occupied with work, so he had to leave." The relative sighed in response, mirroring my own sentiments. Following the funeral's conclusion, as I attempted to unwind, my husband smirked and queried, "So how much did you inherit? Even if you split it, you'll still receive a substantial sum, right?" Remembering the forewarnings from our relatives, it dawned on me that my husband was solely fixated on my father's wealth. Disappointed by his true intentions, I avoided giving him a direct response. "I'm not sure yet. My sister seems to be inheriting everything, and I might not receive anything. We haven't consulted the lawyer yet, and I'm still processing everything since the funeral just concluded," I stated, attempting to downplay the situation. My husband's expression lit up with eagerness as he discussed the inheritance, which infuriated me. Suppressing the urge to laugh out of frustration, I responded, "I don't know. It seems I might not receive anything, and frankly, your excitement over it is quite exasperating." Taking my words seriously, he exploded, "What? You're not inheriting anything. I don't want you anymore. Let's get divorced right away." Feeling equally fed up, I retorted, "Fine, let's do it. You only married me for my dad's money anyway. I'm filing for divorce." With that, I pushed the divorce papers toward him. Though he seemed taken aback, he proceeded to sign them without hesitation. After signing, he left, uttering, "I'll divorce you, who gets nothing, and marry your sister for her $1 billion inheritance." I paid his words no mind and headed straight to City Hall to file the divorce papers, finally liberated from my dreadful husband. The next day, he promptly married my sister. A few days later, my ex-husband called me, still under the illusion of the inheritance. He yelled, "When are we getting Mary her $1 billion? Hurry up." I had been anticipating his call, unwilling to reach out after his departure. Maintaining a composed demeanor, I replied, "Let's meet at my place this Sunday to discuss it. I've made preparations and have been waiting for you." Excited at the prospect of gaining wealth, Brian hung up. However, I couldn't wait to witness his reaction upon learning the truth. On Sunday, both Brian and my sister Mary arrived at our parents' house, surprised to find a lawyer present. Brian attempted to maintain his composure, remarking, "I suppose legal counsel is necessary when dealing with substantial inheritances." As the lawyer began, Brian appeared puzzled. "While there is an inheritance matter, Julie has also filed a compensation claim against you," the lawyer declared, presenting Brian with dated photographs showcasing his visits to Mary's house. These photos evidence infidelity before the divorce, resulting in a compensation claim. Upon overhearing Brian discussing inheritance matters with Mary, I promptly requested the lawyer to investigate Brian's infidelity. Though he likely assumed my attention was consumed by my father's funeral, Brian and Mary met frequently at her residence. Armed with evidence, including photographs, I swiftly pivoted the conversation from inheritance to compensation, leaving both Mary and Brian dumbfounded. Brian quickly composed himself, stating, "Compared to the inheritance, compensation is negligible. I'll pay it immediately." As the lawyer handed him the compensation claim documents, Brian signed them without hesitation. Confirming his signature, I asserted, "I'll ensure you fulfill the compensation payment since you've signed it. However, enjoy your time with Mary, who won't receive a share of the inheritance." Upon learning she wouldn't inherit anything, Mary erupted, "What do you mean I'm not inheriting? I was supposed to receive $100 million. Brian's face flushed with anger. "It can't be true that there's no inheritance. I won't allow you to take it all." Calmly, the lawyer elucidated the situation to the enraged pair. "Mary, as the daughter of your late mother from a previous marriage, you were never legally adopted by your late father. Thus, there's no legal parent-child relationship, and you cannot inherit his estate." Turning to Mary, who appeared bewildered, I clarified, "You were just a year old when our parents were married, so you probably don't remember. But I do. I was 6 years old at the time and was thrilled to gain a sister. Little did I know she'd end up stealing my husband. Our parents, facing challenges with us kids, sought mediation to remarry. Mom treated me as her own, and Dad cared for Mary. Perhaps he spoiled her because she wasn't his biological child, and he wanted to be extra cautious. Our parents each brought a child from their previous marriages into the remarriage. Mom, whom some relatives suspected married Dad for his wealth, refused to legally adopt Mary. Relatives often suggested suitors to me, knowing I was the only one eligible for Dad's inheritance. Had they borne a child together, it might have complicated matters, but they didn't. Perhaps they chose not to have children to avoid future inheritance disputes. It's now evident that Dad continued supporting my sister financially even into adulthood because he couldn't legally pass on his inheritance to her. Though not legally recognized as my mom's daughter due to the lack of adoption, it never affected our familial bond. Apparently, our parents never disclosed their remarriages to my sister, and she learned the truth only recently. My ex-husband's complexion shifted from red to pale as the reality sunk in. After signing the documents and being instructed to pay damages for his false expectations of inheriting from my sister, he asked me with a defeated tone, "Was it all a lie? About my sister inheriting $10 billion while I get nothing?" Struggling to suppress my amusement, I responded, "Certainly, it was a fabrication. It was my way of retaliating for your infidelity. Besides, Dad's inheritance wasn't anywhere near $10 million. Even our affluent father didn't have that much to bequeath." My previously silent sister suddenly exclaimed, "I've made countless plans based on Dad's inheritance. What will happen now? Will you look after me, big sister?" I reassured my anxious sister, "You have a supportive husband now, don't you? You won't require that money anymore. Let Brian take care of you." My sister cast a glance at my ex-husband, who appeared pale and shook his head. "I've also made purchases expecting the inheritance, so I can't support you either. Besides, I have to compensate for damages, so I'm barely managing myself." As I concluded, my ex-husband dropped to his knees in front of me, pleading, "Julie, I'm truly sorry. It was all my fault. Can you forgive me and take me back?" The lawyer, observing the scene, chuckled as he prepared to depart. His earlier arrogance had vanished, and his kneeling form seemed rather ludicrous. Following our conversation, my ex-husband and sister departed with dejected expressions, proceeding to divorce soon after. My ex-husband, who had remarried in anticipation of inheriting my sister's assets, lost interest in her upon learning she wouldn't receive the inheritance. Unable to support my sister due to the damages he owed me, we agreed he would make payments from his monthly salary since he had no assets. The lawyer proposed this arrangement to ensure I received compensation without missing out. Deprived of our father's support, my sister grappled with financial difficulties, toiling in a part-time job every day. Unfortunately, she couldn't manage her debts and eventually filed for bankruptcy. Ultimately, she had to vacate her apartment, and her whereabouts remain unknown. While our father's support stemmed from love, he may have indulged my sister excessively, hindering her ability to take work seriously. Later, a relative attempted to arrange another marriage prospect for me, but I declined. I refused to settle for someone resembling my ex-husband. This time, I'm determined to find a compatible partner on my own terms, continuing to reside solo in our childhood home.